Hello everyone. In this session, we are going to talk about the transformation of data in Power Query Editor. Transformation of data refers to the process of altering the structure, format, or content of a raw data to make it more suitable for analysis, visualization, or any other kind of purposes. This process involves a series of operations and manipulating applied to the data, which can include cleaning, filtering, aggregating, merging, and deriving the new fields or metrics. In simpler terms, the transformation of the data involves changing the data in some way to make it more useful or meaningful for intended use cases. For example, this could involve converting the date formats, standardizing the text fields, combining multiple datasets, or calculating summary statistics. Transformation of data is a critical step in the data analysis workflow as it helps to ensure that the data is accurate, consistent, and relevant for the analysis or reporting objectives. Of data is a critical step in the data analysis workflow as it helps to ensure that the data is accurate, consistent, and relevant for the analysis or reporting objectives. By transforming the data effectively, analysts and decision makers can extract the valuable insights and make some informed decisions based on their process data. So let's go to the Power BI and see how we can transform the data in the Power Query Editor. So we were already working with this data set, and in the last session we saw how can we shape this data. Now we are having this transform pane over here, which has multiple options like split column, group by, and transformation of the data. What you can do is you can again go in this transform tab also, and you can see these options in depth. So the first option over here is the group by option. Now let's say if you want to do the group by of your data and you want to see the values in terms of a specific group. Let's say that I'm having this shipping mode option and I want to see that how is the sales in this particular shipping modes. So for that, I'll be using this group by option and I would to group by this particular shipping modes on the base of sales. So I will use this group by option. I will click on it and it would ask me that on the basis of what option do you want to do group by. So over here in this option, I will select ship mode. Now it would ask me what is the new column name that you want to give. So I can give it sales based on ship mode. Now, what is the kind of aggregation that you want to do on a specific column? So over here, I want to keep the sum of our sales. So over here in the operations, I can click and I can see that there are multiple options right now present. So whenever you are doing group by based on a specific columns, you have to do the aggregation. That is compulsory. So over here, you can choose the aggregating form that what kind of aggregation do you want to perform? Would it be sum? Do you want to take out the average sales, median, minimum, maximum, or do you just want to count the distinct rows or the rows? So over here, right now I'm choosing the operation as sum. And on which column do you want to perform this aggregation option? So I want to perform it on the sales. So I will just select the sales from over here and I will click on OK. Now it would aggregate that particular sales and it would group by the shipping mode column for you. And it would give you the results based on those particular values. So over here, you can see it has grouped by the shipping mode. And on the right hand side, I can see that it is giving me the sum of the sales. Now, again, if you want to just change this particular column's name, what you can do is you can double click over here and you can give the name as sum of sales and you can click on outside. Now it has changed the column name for you. So in this way, you can change any column's name. So let's say if I want to change the name of this particular column from ship mode to shipping method, I will double click on it and I can just rename it to say shipping method and I will click outside of it. And whatever steps you are doing would be reflected over here in the applied steps. It is telling me that I have renamed the columns over here. Now I can see these values and these are in the form of sum. If I just click on this data type option, if I want to see that is it giving me the correct data type or not, it is giving me the decimal numbers. But what if I want to change the data type? Because I know right now that it is in form of some currency. So over here, I can choose this fixed decimal number option. After choosing this fixed decimal number option, I can keep my particular column limited to a particular decimal. So over here, the decimals that it has chosen is 2 after the point. Again, we will see how can we change this particular part in some time. Then this was the first option of using this group by. Now let's say that you want to use some other transformations in text column. Let's say if you want to split those particular columns. So how can you do it? So again, what I'll do is I will just roll back to previous steps where I did some group by options. Now over here, I'm having multiple columns. And if I want to split any of those particular column, for example, I am having this customer name option. Now I want to split this particular column into two parts. That is the first name and the last name. Because you can see I'm having the customer's name over here. So what I will do is I will select this particular column, and over here I'm having this split column option. So if you click on this, you will again get a list of options. The first option is by delimiter. If you know that this particular column has some information which is separated by a particular delimiter, you can use this delimiter option. Right now, I know that the customer name is separated by a space, and this space is coming between the first name and the last name. So I will click on this by delimiter option. Now it is asking me that what is the particular delimiter, although it is automatically detecting this particular delimiter and it is in the form of space. But there are other delimiters also present. If it is not able to detect, what you can do is you can click over here and you can see that it is giving me the option of colon, comma, equals sign, semicolon, space, and tab. But what if my particular data is having any other kind of delimiter? Let's say it is having the delimiter in the form of backslashes. So over here, I can choose this custom option and I can give this particular delimiter as backslash. Then it would try to identify that particular delimiter in your row. Right now, I'm keeping it as space only because my column has that space as delimiter. Now it is asking me that how do you want to split this data with the help of leftmost delimiter, the rightmost delimiter, or each occurrence of the delimiter. So what I will do is first I will select this each occurrence of the delimiter and show you the results. So I will click on OK. Now what happens when I choose this each occurrence of delimiter? Let's say if your particular row has this space coming in between two times of each name. For example, if any customer is having the middle name also. So it would be the first name, space, middle name, space, the last name. So it would try to identify how many times that particular space is coming in between or how many times is that particular delimiter coming in between. And it would try to split that particular column in those particular types. So here you can see that right now my customers are not having any middle name. That is why it is trying to separate that particular column on based of these one delimiter only. Now I can see that my particular column order ID is having the rows, and in that the data is separated by this delimiter in form of dash, and it is occurring two times. Now what if I try to split this particular data? For that what I can do is I can select this, I can click on split the columns option. Again I will use this by delimiter option. This time again I'm using this each occurrence of the delimiter and click on OK. Now I will be getting the three columns because over here, I can see that the delimiter is being repeated two times. So on each occurrence of the delimiter, the data has been splitted and it is making a new column. So it would be the, if I talk about this first row only, IN would be in a specific column. Then I have this other column of to 2014, and I would be getting some third column on based of the other information which was present. So we will give it some time. It is still trying to calculate that, and it is taking time because right now I have chose the column profiling based on the entire data set. If you want to see those particular options in some quick time, so what you can do is you can click on this column profiling based on the top 100 or top 1000 rows only. So it is giving me the top 1000 rows for now, so I'll use this option. Now let's say if your particular data set is having some data like this order ID, where you want to remove that particular characters out of these columns and you want to create some new columns out of it, or this order date where you want to split this order date into three parts where it says the day, the month, and the year. So in that case what you can do is you can select this particular column, you can go in split column options, and over here you can use this by delimiter option again, and you can select this each occurrence of the delimiter. Now what it would try to do is it would try to identify how many times the delimiter is occurring that specific row, and it would try to split that column based on that. Again, the next way to do it is that if you are just looking for a specific delimiter only once, and it can be from the left hand side or from the right hand side. For example, over here in the order ID, if I select this and if I choose the split column option, use this by delimiter option, and over here, instead of the each occurrence of the delimiter, I use this leftmost delimiter and click on OK. Now, since I know that the leftmost delimiter is occurring after IN and just before the 2014, so let's see what kind of result it would give us. You can see it has created two columns for me. The first one is consisting of all the country codes from which the order has been placed. And the next one is the remaining part of that particular cell. Now I will just quickly roll back to this option. I will again select this option. Selecting this column, I will go in the split column option. Again, I will use this by delimiter option. This time I'm choosing rightmost delimiter option and clicking on OK. So you will see that it is trying to capture that last part just before the decimal, sorry, the delimiter, which is just coming after the 2014. So we can see that it has splitted our particular column into two parts based on the rightmost delimiter. Now, there are other transformation options. For example, let's say that it is not trying to detect the data type by itself when you have loaded the data set. So in that case, what you can do? So for example, over here, all of the data that has been recognized for each column is seems correct to me. But if you look over here in this transform option, it is again showing you this data type option. So if you click over here, you can change the data type from here also. If you don't wish to change it from this part by clicking on this icon and changing the data type from over here. So you can use this option as well. Then I have this use first row as header option. So this is fairly important when you are exporting the data set from any other program, and if you are importing it over here, so sometimes it is not giving you the top row as the header, and it is just showing you some column names which is generated by itself. So in that case, you will be using this first row as the header option. So if I click on it, and if I use this option of use first row as header, it would try to identify the first row and what kind of headers are present in that. So right now it is taking it in the form of row ID, order date. But if it was not the case, so for example, if it was used like this, use head as a first row, so what would happen? So in this case, you can see that it is trying to identify that particular columns. And this would be the case whenever you are importing the data from any other source. Sometimes these things can happen. And over here, it won't be able to identify the data type of that particular column correctly. So the first thing to do over here is that you go in this option of use first row as the header and click on it. Then it would try to promote that particular row in the form of headers, and it would try to automatically detect the data type for each of that particular column. So now it has promoted the top row as the header. Again, the next thing to do would be to go in the transform option, and over here you can see that I'm having multiple other options. For example, detect the data type option. So in some cases, after you have promoted the first row as the header, it won't be able to identify the data type present in that particular column. So you can use this detect data type option, and then it will try to identify the data type of specific columns. And even if it is not trying to do it, what you can do is you can go in this data type option and change the data type from over here. Then we have this option of replacing the values. So let's say that in one of my column over here, if I just scroll to right, I have this postal code options. Now, many of the people haven't filled any postal codes. So I am having these value as null. So in some cases, whenever you are having the data which is present in the form of null, for example, let's say that you have requested for any sales option over here, and this is showing you some wrong options in form of zeros or nulls. So in that case, if you want to replace those values, so you can just click on replace values option. It would ask you that what are the particular values that you want to replace, and it will try to find those values in your data set. Right now, what I will do is I will go in this column which says postal code, select it, and I will use this replace values option. And I will ask it that you have to find the null, and whenever you are finding any null values, you have to replace it with 0. After giving these values to find and values to replace with, I can click on OK. And this will try to find all the null values that are present over here, and it will try to replace it by 0. So this is also very useful whenever you are trying to work with a data which has some values and you want to convert those values in some other values. For example, over here, let's say that I have added this subcategory, but this subcategory is showing some wrong values over here. For example, let's say that the appliances spelling is showing wrong over here. In that case, what you can do is you can select this. You can go in replace values options, and over here you can give the spelling of appliances, like what is the value of appliances that is showing right now. So I can give it the value as appliances, and I want to replace it, and I want to skip this S at the last. So let's say I just want to call it as appliance. So I will click on OK and see that if the changes are reflecting over here or not. So you can see the changes have been now reflected over here. Wherever it was saying appliances, now it is only calling it appliance, which is wrong. But if I want to replace the values, this is the best option that you can do by replacing. If you click over here, you again have this option of replacing the errors. Many a times it would happen whenever you are working with the data that your data set would be containing some errors. Now, if you want to replace those errors, this would be the part that you would be dealing with. So we will be talking about these errors in the data profiling options. Now I also have this pivot and unpivot option, which I'll be showing you in the upcoming session. Then we have this move option, which is basically used to move the column in a specific order. So if I click over here and it will tell you that where do you want to move this particular column. So the best way to do is, let's say if I'm selecting this, I'll scroll to the right and I'm selecting this order priority option and I want to keep it just beside of the shipping mode option. So I can just select this column and I can drag it over here just beside where it says the shipping mode. So this might take a bit of time. You can see that it is moving very slow. So over here, what you can do is you can do it with the help of other options. For example, over here I have this move option. So I will again go in the transform option. I have this move option and over here I will select that where do I want to keep it. If I want to select shift it towards the left, I will select towards the left and it would shift the column towards left. If I want to shift it towards the right, I can select towards the right and it would shift it towards the right. If I want to keep it towards the beginning, I will use the towards the beginning option, and same if I want to keep it at the end, I will use to the end option. And if you just want to place it in between anywhere, the best way to do is just select this and just move it like this. And this would be speedy in that case. So these are some ways in which you can move the column. Then we have some other options in the form of the number columns. So for example, we change this particular sales. So where I have the sales column over here, if I select it, and let's say if I want to change the values that are present over here, I want to keep it fixed at 2 decimal places or 3 decimal places only. Over here, you can see that it is showing me the values up till 4 decimal places, but I don't want to see so much of values. So over here, I will click on this data type and I will select fixed decimal number. After selecting this fixed decimal number, it will try to identify the data that is present inside those rows and it will try to fix it. But if it is not able to fix it, what you can do it, you can again select this and over here we have this number column option where there are multiple options that you can and multiple formatting options that you can perform on the top of the number columns. For example, first I have this statistics option. So over here, let's say I want to keep the sum of sales over here. So I will click on the sum and it would show me the sum of that complete sale. So the complete sum of sales is coming over here as 12 million. Now you can see that the query has now changed. It has removed that orders table and it is just showing you that sum of sales. So again, I will just remove this query and you can also perform the other options. For example, if you don't want to see the sum of sales, so you can have, I will just quickly go to the sales column, transform column, and over here you have the other options of statistics as well. If you want to see the minimum value, maximum value, median, average, standard deviation, you want to count the values or you want to count the distinct values, all the operations can be performed from over here. Then we have this standard option from over here. This standard option is used whenever you want to include any specific values in that particular column. For example, let's say that I have done some sales, but I want to just exclude some text out of it. In that case, I want to subtract some values, or let's say if I want to add or multiply those values, what would I do? So over here, I have these numeric operations. So first I will click on add, and over here it would ask me that what is the specific value that you want to add in that row. So I will keep it as 1. The first value I can see that it is giving me 209. So after adding the value of 1, the value should become 210.30. So I will click on OK. The next value is 30. So let's see if it is changing all the values in each row or not. So you can see it has changed the values in each of the rows. And now I can perform some numerical operations on the top of it with the help of these standard options like add, multiply, subtract from any column, divide it by something, or integer divide, modulo, percentage, and percentage of as well. Then we have the scientific options. So let's say if your data set is containing some negative values and if you want to bring it to the positive values, you can use this absolute values option. Then again, we have the power option where you can take out the power in form of square, cube, or any other power. Then we have the square root option, the exponent options, the logarithm options, and the factorials options. So this would be very helpful whenever you are working with an engineering data or the scientific data. These values would come in handy where you can perform the specific set of operations in this scientific way. Then we can also perform the trigonometric options and the rounding options. First, I will show you the rounding options. For example, we are working with the sales data where I have already added one value to each row. So let's leave it for now. And I have seen these values and it is showing me, and it is just showing me the decimals after, like it is showing me two values after the decimal. But what if I want to round it off? So in that case, I can go in the rounding option, and then it would ask me, how do you want to round it? So if you want to round up or if you want to round down, if I choose round up, it would choose the next value after that particular term which is present in form of decimal. So just click on round up and see how it is changing the results. So you can see it is rounding up that value. It doesn't matter if the value present there was 210.30, it would round it off to the nearest integer. Then again, if you want to round it down, what you can do is you can choose the round down option over here. Then we have this round option, which would basically ask you that up till which decimal place do you want to show the values. So right now it is showing me two values after the decimal point. Let us keep it as 1. So I will select 1 and click on OK. And you can see it has rounded the values for us. Now there are multiple other things also you can do. For example, I am having this date and time column over here. So over here, if you go in any particular column which is having the date and time data type, so I will go in this order date. So if I click on this, I was getting these options of changing the data type by date and time. If I was having any kind of timestamp in my rows, by just keeping the date or by just keeping the time over here. So all these things can be done with the help of this particular pane over here in this transform tab. If you just want to change this date, what you can do is you can click over here in the date option, and it would give you a series of operations that you can perform on the top of it. For example, if you just want to pass the year out of it, or you want to pass the month, quarter, the week out of it, or the day out of it, you can choose these values. Then again, we have some operations in form of time. So when we will be working with the time data, we can use this particular option as well in the transform data. So these were some of the operations that we can do whenever we are trying to transform the data. It includes changing the data type, detecting the correct data type, and extracting the information in forms of date only or time only, or moving the columns, filling the values, replacing the values, and renaming the columns. In the next session, we will be looking at how can we pivot and unpivot the columns, and also we will be looking at how can we transpose, reverse, or count the rows out of any specific data set. Thank you.